Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Swipe in the City. You've got Marie here.
And Michelle, as always.
It's just the two of us today.
It is just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
We're working on some scheduling, but some days you just get us, some days you get some special guests. But we're just kind of cranking some content out today.
Yeah. How are things going? What's been going on?
Things are good. I feel like I've got a lot going on as usual. Work has been busy. This week was pretty productive. I had started my day earlier each day.
Love it.
It's wild how much more you get done when you wake up at a reasonable time.
It really is.
So that's definitely a habit I'm looking at bringing into next week.
Love it.
Also, I think I've talked about it on a few episodes, trying to find a new therapist. I've got a meet and greet appointment scheduled for next week.
I love that you refer to it as a meet and greet, like as if this is a potential dog walker.
I mean, basically, walking my emotions, maybe. I don't know.
That feels like it'd be good for you.
So it feels good to have that scheduled. It's something that I've been wanting to do and needing to do for a while. We both have a couple trips planned. I woke up to tickets to Maui booked overnight. So.
Must be nice.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. It's been, I think, a couple, over 2 years since I've been out there, and that's kind of
yeah.
I don't want to say it was a second home for me, but my parents have been out there for 5 or 6 years. So I was going a lot more when I was in Portland. So
yeah,
gonna do that. Yeah. Other than that, have I been going on dates? Not the last couple of weeks.
Like it, no.
Yeah, not the last couple of weeks. I've had a few IRL meets and conversations, but nothing that's manifesting into more than a couple of beers.
Fair. That's fair.
How about you?
Yeah, I've been busy with work too, and I mean, I didn't wake up to tickets to Vegas, but my mom did call me on a Saturday morning, and she literally pulled "We're going to Vegas," and I was like, "Mom, are you okay?" I really think the pandemic did get to her, but and then she did also. So we're going to Vegas, and then I'm home for 3 days, and then immediately going to Chicago for about a week and a half. And God bless my mother because she bought those tickets too. She was just I think she's just so excited to do anything. And I think it's been 3 years since I've been back to Chicago.
That's wild.
Yeah. I feel like I've talked about that trip more on this podcast, over the past couple of weeks because, there's a part of me that's, still getting my head around it.
Yeah.
Oh, that place where I lived half my life.
Do you get any anxiety or stress related to going home?
Only seeing my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that though, I mean, no, not really. I'm really excited to see a lot of my old friends because it's they've either in the past couple of years are now in relationships. I'll get to meet one of my friends' fiancés. And then I have a couple friends who popped out kids, so it's that's wild.
You're gonna go on the baby train, meeting all the little nuggets.
Yeah. One of them, it's her second, so I've met the first, but yeah, and then the other one, it's her first, so it's crazy. I'm like, Jesus, everybody's having babies, and I'm over here here's my podcast, baby.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. When I go back, I'm going back to Portland in September for another wedding, and ideally, not ideally, that sounds weird. One of my friends is expecting her second baby, one of my really, really good friends, and so I will hopefully get to see my little niece, and then meet the new little nugget too, which is exciting.
Nugget.
Little nugget. I like to hang out with babies for
5 seconds,
an hour, and then I'm like, okay,
you can have it back
now. Where are the dogs?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've both been grinding, and it's going to be a really, really busy summer.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think we also thrive a little bit when we've got a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, and especially after a lot of nothing.
Yeah.
During everything. It's nice to have stuff on the calendar and, start thinking about IRL events that we're doing too, which everybody who's listening should be on the lookout for some of those announcements coming up. Yeah, should we get into today's topic?
Yeah, that does remind me though. I've been getting a lot of like requests for us to do another speed dating event.
A lot of you have been asking.
A lot of you have been DMing or asking. So that's something we should talk about.
Yeah,
but,
I mentioned that to Sammy the last time I was at Wanderlust. I was like, we got to get another one of these on the book. Like, that was so much fun.
It was so fun, and there were like a couple good connections made.
There were.
I don't think it resulted in any like LTRs, but
baby steps.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. And it's a fun new way to meet people.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an old way of meeting people, but like, it's
coming back.
It's coming back.
Like 90s jeans.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of, like, which I'm literally wearing. Like, yeah. So I'm excited. But yeah, should we dive into today's topic, Michelle?
Let's do it. Speaking of meeting people, whether you love them or hate them, dating apps are still here. I don't think they're going away anytime soon.
No.
So we wanted to do another episode in our Dating Best Practices series on app etiquette.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on some of these things in past episodes, but like part of that was also pandemic related, so now coming out of it. And then I think it's also nice to kind of just discuss etiquette in general, which personally I think a lot of people could use a little bit.
I mean, I probably could.
I'm like, I don't know. My mom raised me to know which side to put the fork and the knife.
I would like eat standing up in the kitchen. I don't know. We rarely had proper sit down family dinners because we're just always, my whole family is just like busybodies. We're always doing stuff. But
feels right.
So what's just like when we say app etiquette, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Being polite. If you're a dude, I feel like that means being like gentlemanly. And no matter what you are, like just respectful. Because, I mean, we've literally created a whole series on shit guys say because they say shit that is either not respectful or just plain stupid. So that's what I think of. What do you think of?
Yeah, I mean, definitely respect is a big one. And just like, I don't know, common sense and like responsiveness. I think responsiveness is one that I've been thinking about lately. Like, but to be fair, I'm very non-responsive because I keep the notifications off on Hinge. And so it's kind of funny because I feel like a little bit of a
I know what you're getting at. Tip of my tongue. Hypocrite.
Yeah. I'm going to give y'all recommendations that I don't follow myself on this episode. So, welcome to the shit show.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so one of the things I would say is like response times. And again, this is somewhere where I'm really bad. So, like let's say you match with somebody, it's a, Tuesday, you start chatting back and forth. I don't expect someone to be responding immediately or like throughout the workday.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once you go beyond a full day in between messages back and forth, that's like such a like drug out conversation.
Yeah.
And any momentum you might have in like having a conversation, I feel like just dissipates in that sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, when you have someone that replies a week later or 6 days later, it also, because this is part of why I'm not super responsive. It's just like, it's not a priority for me.
Right.
Or I'm not that interested.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I think that does. Responsiveness says a lot. Especially, like, have you ever, like, matched with somebody, like, where they, on Hinge specifically, so they're sitting in your bucket of likes, and you accept the match? Like, don't even say anything, you just accept, and then they message you, like, right away?
I have, but I feel like that's just for people who have notifications on.
Well, but even if you're doing something, if you see the notification, I feel like it's kind of thirsty. Because I'm like, oh, you're literally just sitting here, like, you're sitting here waiting for matches, and you're just
Oh my god! It's like Pokemon Go was a big thing.
Oh my god, I was so into
Gotta
that.
capture it.
Gotta catch them all.
People fucking running in the middle of the street with their head down, staring at their phone, trying to catch invisible.
Girl, that was
items.
me. I would walk Luna all around here because there would always be Pokemon by the lake.
Yeah, I do. I feel like if someone's like immediately responsive, so on one hand it can come off as a little thirsty. On the other hand, it could be like, again, if it's a Wednesday evening and this is the time that I'm on my phone and I'm on Hinge, then I'm gonna be like more responsive. But I do like, yeah, even with texting, it can drive me a little crazy if it's not relative to like making plans or like figuring something specific out. If someone's just like message, because it's like, yo, we're gonna run out of stuff to talk about really fast.
Well, yeah, and then it's like at the same time, if you're having a conversation over the course of several days, but it's like, I think you were talking about this on one of the Shit Guys Say, because he's like, oh, how are you today? And you responded like the following day. And then he didn't respond until like 2 days later. And it's just like, that's not even like, now you're like, oh, I'm good. Like, that's not even relevant, because by the time he messages you back, you might not be good anymore.
Yeah. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine, is when the message is really like time sensitive to be relevant. Because I'm probably not going to respond that, or like, how is your morning going? Like, I'm not going to respond within this 2-hour window you're giving me.
Right. Like, you're messaging me at 10 o'clock on a work day. Like, I'm sorry, I can't respond to you. I'm on calls.
What do you think is like the appropriate range of response times for messaging? Let's just say like you've just matched and sent like the first message.
I think I give more grace for the first message, because especially if you aren't actively on the app, I think I start that clock the second person responds. Does that make sense? So like,
yeah,
if I send a like or a match back to a guy, I don't start his clock until he messages me and says, hey, what's up?
That's fair. Yeah.
So then from there, I would say, like, give it 12 hours.
Yeah.
And then from there, I feel like things either need to go in the direction of quick conversations to planning a date, or if they drag it on, then it's just not going to go anywhere and it's not worth your time.
Yeah, I feel that. I used to be really big on like a lot of chatting before meeting up with someone, and it just resulted in conversations dying, because you can't really
not here for a pen pal, which is also not something I'd recommend putting on your profile, because it makes you look like an asshole. But like
100%.
But because also it's like, no, like, we're not here for a pen pal. Like, that's not why I'm on a dating app.
Right. Yeah, I feel like 12 to 24 hours, like a day. Next day response to me is reasonable.
Yeah.
And you may have time where you're both on the app and you're like chatting or not. But I also like, if I'm really, really interested based on either like their profile or the initial message or whatever, I move to text pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because A, those notifications are on.
Right.
And B, like, you can have more of a natural conversation over text, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. And well, because I mean, like you said, you're getting the notification.
Yeah.
You can see it. You're not having to open yet another app to like talk to somebody. So how soon do you give your phone number out? I feel like from what it sounds like, it's based on how you feel about the person and the conversation.
Yeah, I would say it's typically within like a day or two, which might be a handful of messages and it might be 20 messages. Yeah. The exception to that is, I would say, if it's like a Thursday or Friday and I'm wanting to like make plans for the weekend, sometimes I'll reach out like really, really quickly with it and just be like, hey, like my plans are open. Yeah. You seem great if you want to coordinate. So I think that's the exception where I'll send it quickly. Other than that, like, I think a day or two, just to feel out. Because if I gave my number to every single person I matched with, I'd have this inbox full of like, hey, hey,
Hey, it's so and so from Hinge.
or not even that, just hey. I'm like, who are you?
I don't know.
Give me context, please.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I'll kind of gauge it on the other person's response time too. Like, I think I said this on a past episode. Um, when Luke and I first started messaging, he, I matched with him and he matched back a couple of days later. And the conversation I realized within the first couple of messages was just taking longer. So I'm like, oh, he's probably about on this app about as much as I am, which is not much. And so I was like, yeah, if you want to talk, here's my number. Like, let's talk Taylor Swift. Um, so I think, well, and maybe we have a better read on other people because of like sales skills and like acumen.
Yeah.
But I don't know that everybody has that skill.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. So kind of looking at timelines, when do you feel like it's a good time or appropriate to like ask someone to meet up?
Not on the app. I feel like you should wait until you have somebody's phone number to ask them out. I mean, I need to know if you have green tags. So I need that phone number first. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't like it when it's the first message.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, yes, when it was Tinder and when these apps first came out, they were much more of that, like, instant gratification. Like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, you're hot. Like, come meet me.
There's still very instant gratification, to be fair.
There is. But I think, like, the way that Hinge is designed, it's designed to be conversational.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed to promote, like, establishing some sort of, again, you're obviously not going to figure out, like, if you have genuine chemistry with someone over Hinge.
No.
But establishing some sort of
something
vibe or connection or thing in common or whatever that might be. And so when someone's just like, hey, want to come over and watch dinner or eat dinner.
Watch dinner.
I have, again, I'm going to save it for shit guys say, but I've got that one where he's like, come over and if to my liking, we can watch a movie. I'm like, that's fucking weird. And what, like, oh, I'm going to come over like a fucking prize pony, and if I'm not to your liking,
yeah, get the fuck out.
So I don't like it in the first message. I do think if you're someone who's less comfortable giving your phone number out, then I think it's fine to, because I know a lot of people that just like are uncomfortable giving out their number. I think it's fine to make plans over the app, or to like start to make plans and then move to a number, because it's like, oh, this will be easier to coordinate.
Yeah, but like I think you need to establish something before that. Like I think there should be at least a little back and forth.
Yeah.
Because I agree. Like, and I'm very like one of those people that would want to establish like a date or some time to meet earlier on.
Yeah.
Because like we keep talking about with momentum, but like you don't want to do it too soon. And I think you have to kind of learn a little bit about the other person too. And I feel like based on the way they respond to your questions, you can also kind of make a guess as to whether or not you're overstepping by asking them.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Like, kind of feeling out the conversation and seeing, and if they're being really, really short and non-responsive, they're probably not that into you, and they probably don't want to jump to a date.
Right.
And that's fine. Like, move on. Just move on.
They're probably talking to you for the instant gratification of talking to somebody. Like, there's the hard truth.
Yeah, they're doing it for the attention or because they're bored, which admittedly, like, we do that sometimes.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm on there and I'm just like, who liked me today?
Yeah.
I'm like a little insecure. Who liked me?
Yeah.
What photos are they liking? But yeah, I think in terms of asking someone out, it does depend too, because again, some people I think vet for a lot longer.
Yeah.
And some people are more into meeting. So I think when there's a common interest, or like a relevant event. So if you both are into like stand-up comedy and there's a show tomorrow, or like or even like we had our event last week and Paul brought a date to it, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, hey, my friends are doing this thing. It's cool. I think that's obviously wasn't like a first date, so it's a little different. But then I feel like it just has to be natural and not a weird like,
out of left field.
yeah, I feel like there needs to just be something established, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It has to be at least a little something. Like, I feel like you can't go from, hey, what's up, to, like, want to get a drink. I don't think that's really fair.
Agreed. How do you feel about unmatching people?
I think every once in a while it's okay to clean up your matches, depending on how active and the way that you use the app too. Like if you get drunk and you match with everybody, maybe like you might need to wake up the next morning and unmatch a few people.
True. Or if friends swipe for you and they're being funny,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to go and do some cleanup.
Yeah.
So do you think it's more like respectful, or like, as we're talking about etiquette here, to just like let a conversation die or maybe stop responding, or just to pull the trigger and do the unmatch?
For me personally, it takes a lot to get me to like unmatch or block somebody because I don't see it as necessary unless I think they're like a threat in some way. So I think if you're talking to somebody and maybe they say something you don't like, unmatching seems a bit like overkill.
It feels a little passive aggressive.
It does.
And
yeah.
I don't know why. Like, it shouldn't, but
I agree.
It feels
That's
like it's like passive aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna unmatch somebody at that point, I feel like you should at least just say, like, hey, look, like, we're not the match.
Well, you have to be careful, though, because speaking of etiquette, a couple weeks ago, I like messaged this guy, or we were going back and forth, and I was just like, hey, and this had been the second time we matched. So we matched once. The conversation died. I didn't.
Zombie
I was
matching.
like, it looks familiar, but I was like, whatever. We matched again, had this back and forth, and then I was just like, hey, like, I'm not really feeling like a connection here, yada yada. And he got like really aggressive in response and was like, yeah, well, it's really hard to feel like you can't make a connection through texting. Like,
red flag.
It came off real aggressive, and he said something along the lines of like, I don't know if it was like delete my number, but I didn't even have his number, but like he ended it on like a really aggressive note, and I was like, oof, dodged a bullet with that one.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just it, right? Like, that's a huge red flag. So if you do say something like that, which to me, I feel like saying, hey, look, like, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
It's not the match. I think that's very respectful. And then if they take something, now if you're saying, like, oh, because you like this band and I like their, whatever, their competitor, then we can absolutely never be a match. Fuck you, never talk to me again.
Right.
Like, that's different than politely saying, hey, like, I don't think this is the match for me. And so then if they take something like that aggressively, I think that is 100% dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
I did the right thing. So, I mean, it's gonna happen. That's when people show their colors.
Yeah, I do feel, I don't know, I feel conflicted about the unmatching. Like, I never unmatched, and then lately I've been doing it a little bit more because I had this situation where I was like just letting the conversation die off, not really responding, and then over a week later he like reached out again.
Yeah.
And so then
I've had a few like that.
And kind of like tried to strike up a conversation again. And then he said something weird about needing a hug, like not like just saying he had a hard day or something. I was like, this is weird. I don't know.
So I don't care about your day.
So like, I just unmatched him in the first place because, so I go back and forth with it. What about, so if you go on a date and there's not going to be a second date
and you unmatch them, I think that's a little fucked up.
I think that, yeah, I don't do that. I think that's a little more aggressive.
Yeah, I've had guys do that to me before, and it's kind of just mean. It's like you didn't need to take it that far.
Well, here's the other thing. You don't have a limited number of matches living in your match bucket.
Right.
Like, you're not oh, I need to clear this out because I can only have 10 conversations going at once in the app. Like, it
You
just
can
goes,
hide them on Hinge.
well, and they just, after like a few days, I think, or whatever it is, they just go into the hidden area anyway. So it's not a big deal. I feel like some people do that as a less direct way of rejecting you rather than just saying, hey, nice to meet you, not interested.
Right. I think more people, honestly, I think people in general need to get more comfortable with saying, hey, like, it's not going to work for me. You're great, but like,
yeah,
it's not right.
Trying to think. That kind of ties into, so if you've already gone out with someone and, or already have their number, and then they message you on the app.
I hate that. Like, I think I told this story in Shit Guys Say because then he texted me when I called him out on Hinge.
Yeah.
For responding to me. This is a guy I dated before Luke, and then he went out of town. It was actually one of those. Yeah. So he went out of town, and he actually ended up being gone for like months and months. And then he hit me back up over Hinge, which I was like, okay, I don't understand why you're even doing this. Like, did you delete my number? Like, what's your problem?
Yeah, I had it happen in the last like week or two, and
it's gross.
Well, I'm just like, you have my number.
Right.
Why are you using a less direct way?
Right.
To communicate with me? It's just I don't know what the point is. Other than maybe because it is less direct, it's like less of a hand raise. Like they kind of want to poke you,
right,
and see how you respond, and then they'll like come out with whether they want to meet up with you again or not or something.
Yeah, or like they're kind of like a pussyfoot way around, like avoiding a rejection. Totally. If like, because it's like, oh, if texting is the best way to get in touch with me, and you text me and I don't respond, in your head, it's like, oh, they're ignoring me. Versus if you go on the app, you can give yourself the excuse of like, oh, maybe they just deleted the app. Or like, oh, they don't have their notifications turned on. It's much easier to accept being ignored there.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And that also aligns with, I think, those like outreach methods too. Yeah. Or those particular situations.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we've touched on, I was going to go into appropriate, but let's do that at the end. When do you think, since we're talking about, oh, maybe they just deleted the app, when do you think is the right time to delete the app if you're with somebody?
I think it depends on, I mean, I feel like once you've established you're exclusive, whether that's 2 weeks in or 12 weeks in. Yeah. I feel like once you've established that you're exclusive, because if you're not seeking additional partners or new partners or dates,
then what's the
point? I also think that in terms of building, again, this is like if you're in a monogamous exclusive relationship. Right. I think when you're building up the kind of foundation to that, getting that attention or that satisfaction outside of from that person can actually have like a negative impact on how you start building that relationship.
I think it makes it more difficult to build that relationship for sure. Yeah, and I mean, unless you have a dating podcast, you don't have any reason to need a dating app on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a little different, or if, again, depending on the boundaries of that particular relationship. I mean, that's the other thing, too. I was listening to, I think it might have been You Up the other day, but they were talking about, if you're out at the, bar with your girls and someone's just kind of, like, chatting with you, but you don't, like, exchange info or anything like that, you don't, take it too far. It's like, okay, where is that boundary? And again, I think that comes back to your relationship and what your partner is comfortable with.
Yeah. And what you're comfortable with.
For sure.
On kind of a similar note, and this we don't have on our list, but what are your thoughts of people expressing outright on their dating apps that they are in a non-traditional relationship? So they're in an open relationship, or, they're polyamorous. Have you seen a lot of that?
I've seen that. I've only seen that on Tinder. I don't think I've ever seen that on Hinge.
Feels right for Tinder.
But I mean, honestly, like I respect that you're showing up in a transparent way. You're being honest about like what your intentions are, and then you're allowing the other person who's like swiping or sees your profile to have that information and use that to make their decision on if that's something they're interested in or not. So I think, I mean, I'm a big fan of transparency and communication and disclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important. And I think that's a very different type of transparency than the people who are like, I'm just here for hookups. It's like, okay, right. Well, that's a little aggressive.
Well, yeah, I think when people are like, oh, like, if you're just looking for hookups, swipe left or whatever. Like, yeah. It is a very different way of saying, like, here's what I'm looking for, but there's also something to be considered depending on how much information they give you, as they may be like, oh, I'm in an open relationship, but they're looking for kind of like another party. Like, the woman who did my tattoo last weekend, was referring to like different people as her partner. Like, she has a nesting partner. She has like kind of, I guess, like different people that fulfill different needs.
Yeah.
And that is the way that some of those relationships work.
Yeah.
So just because they're saying like, hey, I'm in a relationship, a committed relationship, doesn't mean that they're just there for sex.
Yeah. Agreed. But yeah, I think disclosure is always good when it's done to be intentional and say like, hey, this is what you should understand. But yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't think I've ever seen it on Hinge. And then also there are apps specifically for those types of situations too. And so, it makes sense to, obviously more people are on Hinge, right? So you're going to be there, but it makes sense to have some of those more like specialized apps as well if you're looking for something that's really specific.
Yeah. And I think, well, honestly, like from what I've understood from other people telling me about the way that their relationship in that sense works, I think honestly that some of the more polyamorous, non-monogamous relationships are more communicative than traditional monogamous. Like I don't think I've ever seen a guy put that on his profile, and not to totally trash men, but I've only seen it on women's profiles.
Interesting.
Yeah. So whether it's because maybe that they're looking for a third partner and want that to be female, or there's something about women that they're more willing to be open and transparent about that from the get-go. I just think it's kind of interesting.
It might also be that coming from a woman's a little less, like, threatening is the wrong word.
Yeah.
But I think it's received a little bit.
That's true.
More of, this is their relationship style rather than this is just some guy looking for a threesome.
Yeah.
So I think there's something there too for how it's like perceived and why that would be a little bit more like, not an easier land, but
yeah,
a little more comfortable for people maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I think comfort level is also something to come across in the way that they communicate, hey, I'm in a, relationship.
For sure. Now we have a couple more on here, but I feel like we covered some of like the bigger things we wanted to talk about. I know we'd mentioned like appropriate versus inappropriate messages. I think anything that's like hypersexual while you're still talking on the app, or for me, that's just like not appropriate.
Even if that's what you're there for, I don't think you should lead with that. I don't think it's respectful.
Yeah, agreed. And especially if there's no, I mean, it's one thing if like both people are on the app, they're both, looking for a certain like sexual encounter or hookup, and they're both leading into that conversation,
Yeah.
that's probably
But when
when
it's
different.
just random.
But yeah, when it's just a guy being like,
or the first message.
yeah, like, oh, I want to do this, this, and that. It's like,
Your thick thighs.
no.
Like,
Yeah.
fuck you. Yeah, I completely agree. I think, well, and also, I don't know that guys always think about, like, just how many messages like that women receive.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, they don't necessarily, like, that's not necessarily complimentary.
Right.
You know, like, when you're walking your damn dog and somebody's honking at you, like, they're, I guess, trying to tell you that you're hot or they're physically attracted to you, but it's not a compliment. It's fucking rude.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, getting like hooted and hollered at. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I am wearing some very short shorts.
I don't think it doesn't matter how short
it doesn't
or tight
matter.
your pants are.
No, I know.
That's not an invite.
But it's not, and it's not like, and also there's, what are you going to accomplish with that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I ask every single time.
Yeah, I think that's like coming back to the app too. You're kind of asking for something, like you're putting out a message that you don't have like permission for yet.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like in that context, if it's the first, second, third message, like I haven't given you in my opinion, like not to tie it to like almost like permission or consent to ask me those
100%.
questions or to so yeah, I definitely think anything that's really sexual. I feel like anything. I think it's inappropriate to come in with anything that could come off as like condescending or rude or just like.
How would you judge that? Like, do you have any examples of like a condescending message you've received?
Not top of mind. I just feel like I've had a few where I'm like, this isn't a pickup line or this isn't like advanced message. This just comes off as like rude. Like,
interesting.
It could be something where they're like questioning one of your prompt responses.
Okay.
Or maybe like an example could be like with the VAX status. They could like come in hot and be like, oh, so you're one of the sheep that got vaccinated or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think even when you're trying
it's
to
like there's no reason for you to say that to me.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's guys trying to be like funny and they'll come in like I'm a very sarcastic person.
Yeah.
But also it's like a little bit just it like takes you aback when you got some of those initial messages and it's like, I get you're trying to be funny, but we haven't established anything for me to understand your sense of
know your humor yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think you're right. I think a lot of guys do try to lead with humor because that's probably true to who they are as a person, which is great. But they forget that when you're texting or messaging, how much of that initial communication you're losing.
Totally.
So even just saying, hey, what's up, could be, hey, what's up? Or it can be, hey, what's up?
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of that type of stuff doesn't translate well.
Or at all.
Or
at all. Like, I mean, the number of messages that I've sent that are extremely sarcastic that go well over my mother's head is, like, ridiculous.
Yeah.
And she knows my sense of humor.
Yeah. For sure. Sarcasm can definitely come into play, but I think it's a few messages in. It's once you, like, kind of your conversation styles and stuff.
Or even met the person in real life. Like,
yeah.
It's totally different if I send something to you, you knowing that I'm sarcastic.
Right.
And I say something like I don't even know what I would say. But you understand that that's sarcastic because you've met me and you know my tone.
Yeah.
Versus if you've never even had a real verbal conversation, it's hard to tell.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, I think that we have a great guidebook here. Y'all be on the lookout for the PDF version of our dating best practices advice. It's so sound.
Yes, our first ebook's coming out fall 2021.
Let's
not say summer, Jesus.
I was gonna suggest we do an audiobook, and then I was like, oh wait, an audiobook is basically the podcast.
So on that note, we're both very hungry and need more coffee.
Yes. So to Lazarus we go.
Yes. Marie, where can people find us?
Swipe and the city across all platforms. You know all the major ones. I don't need to list them.
And I think that's a wrap. Thanks, y'all.